It is Tuesday, March 22nd. The madness has begun. You're watching Right on Cue College Sports. Welcome in. That is right. You are watching Right on Cue College Sports. I'm your host, Tyson Quiller, and did we get treated to an incredible first weekend of the NCAA tournament. The madness is in full swing. You need look no further than the fact that there were roughly 70 million brackets filled out for the NCAA tournament. It took just the first weekend, and we no longer have any perfect brackets for this tournament anywhere. That obviously is due in large measure to the new darling St. Peter's Peacocks, 15 seed, beat the 2 seed Kentucky, and then 2 days later beat the 7 seed Murray State Racers, and they are on into the Sweet 16. For those of you that watched the previous episode or have been keeping score at home, yes, Kentucky was our projection for the national champion. They bow out in the first round. That one hurt. Completely random. That's just I looked over and went over all those numbers over and over. It's just a pure bad break. It's a national champion coach in John Calipari. We found out over the weekend Oscar Tshiebwe was the National Player of the Year. Just an incredibly bad break. And I saw some talk over the weekend as well about how, well, maybe now it's time to put the nail in the coffin on John Calipari's one-and-done system. Oscar Tshiebwe is a junior. I think he might even be a fourth-year junior. Shavir Wheeler is a junior as well. He transferred in from Georgia, I believe. They have one freshman that I know plays big minutes, and that's Ty Washington. This is not the team that he's had in the past. So I don't know if it's an indictment on the one-and-done. But, boy, that was really, really tough to take on Thursday night. We will be losing points every round because of Kentucky. But, again, feel free to like, subscribe, share this. We do have the email that I'm checking regularly, right on QCS@gmail.com. In this episode, we're gonna go ahead and kind of put a bookend on the season for Colorado State, and Wyoming. They all bowed out first round of their respective tournaments at the end of what were really pretty good seasons for each of these teams. In some cases, really great seasons. A little bit of a disappointment for each of these teams right at the end of the season. Then we're going to touch base and do a quick reseed. Now that we know the 16-team field, we've cut it from 68 to 16, and we're going to go ahead and take those 16, reseed them. Remember, keep in mind, from the numbers that we investigated last week, your upsets are going to become exceedingly infrequent moving forward now. From the Elite Eight, or from the Sweet 16, the Elite Eight, Final Four, and in the championship game, all probably right around 1% likelihood of an upset. So especially beyond the Sweet 16. When you get to the Elite Eight, really the juggernauts settle in. And it is off of kind of that short turnaround, the second game of the second weekend. And then we're going to go ahead and we are going to finish up by taking a quick snapshot at each of the games we have lined up for us coming up. Thursday and Friday are the round of 16. We'll have 4 games on Thursday, 4 games on Friday, 8 teams in each, and that will pare our field down from 16 to 8, Elite 8 round, 2 games on Saturday, 2 games on Sunday. We're looking forward to seeing some awesome elite basketball being played. But let's go ahead and let's just start right here. These are kind of my March takeaways from the March Madness here. Every year I try analytically to decipher the madness that is this tournament in March, and sure enough, the tournament just destroys everyone on week 1. Since 1985, the first 144 attempts for a 15 seed to beat a 2, it only happened once. And that was back, I believe, 2014 Florida Gulf Coast. They lost, I believe, in the second round that year. Now we have had a 15 knock off a 2 in back-to-back tournaments. So data might be shifting here. Trends might be shifting here. The 2 conferences that are clearly performing the worst by a large margin, and that is the SEC and the Big Ten. The SEC had 6 teams get an invite into this tournament. Every one of them was seeded 6 or higher, and now that we made it through 2 rounds, they have 1 team remaining. and that's Arkansas. As for the Big Ten, they had 9 teams. Nine teams. 3 more teams than any other conference make this tournament field. After 2 rounds, they have 2. The exact same amount of teams that the Pac-12 still has remaining. But whatever. I guess we just really like to watch Big Ten teams lose in the first 2 rounds of this tournament. That's why we keep putting 9 of them in year after year. But with that being said, let's go ahead and put our book in on the Colorado Buffalo season here. They finished 21-12. This is their 4th straight season winning 20 games or more. So that's puts a little perspective on it. I know I can get out in front of my skis. Obviously, I want this team in the tournament every year. I want them to be able to make runs in the tournament every year. But in the grand scheme of things, this is a relatively successful season for the Buffaloes. Tad Boyle does have them on a trend now. 4 straight 20-win seasons. They would have been in the tournament 2 years ago if not for COVID shutting everything down. So that would have been 2 consecutive NCAA tournaments the last 2 seasons. I'm not going to spend much time on this because, man, they looked completely disinterested. It was a weird environment for their game against St. Bonaventure, first round of the NIT, because the arena was just really dead, completely empty. There were really not a lot of fans in the stands, but it was a nationally televised game against a team that you're favored to beat. It was really disappointing to watch. I really obviously thought that they had earned their way into the NCAA tournament, and they got jobbed, and you would like to see a team that you go to bat for make a run in the NIT to at least kind of justify what you have said about them being deserving to be in the NCAA tournament. I do want to mention Keyshawn Bartholomew played hard, and that's all. That's all. I mean, I've seen some comments. It's so sad Evan Batty's going out this way. Evan Batty, he played soft. He played disinterested. He did not play the style of Evan Batty basketball that we're used to seeing. I think we saw probably the best brand of Colorado basketball in that first round game against Oregon in the Pac-12 tournament. They looked incredible. Jabari Walker and Evan Batty dominated the paint, and they looked like a really solid team. And then the last 2 games have kind of tapered off and been a little bit of a disappointment from there. Now, looking forward for this team, Batty's gone. But you have a solid core, and I think you really, really need to keep them. Okay, I have serious terrors within me because of what I saw happen to our football team in the offseason here through the transfer portal. I don't foresee that happening to the Buffaloes, but we need to not allow these players to transfer out of Colorado. That being, or go to the pros, being Jabari Walker, Tristan DeSilva, KJ Simpson, Neek Clifford, Julian Hammond. That's a solid young core. You also have Lawson Lovering, hopefully coming back from that injury, down low in the paint. I think the Buffs really need to add kind of a Jariah Horn-like player through the transfer portal if they can. A solid big man who can get out on the perimeter, stretch the defense, and hit the 3 on a frequent enough occasion that he has to be respected. I think that was really kind of the difference between this team and the team last year that ended up making it to the NCAA tournament and made it beyond Georgetown to the second round. The Buffs are currently number 78 in the recruiting rankings, behind 8 other Pac-12 teams. That's not a great look. They have signed the 6'10 center Joe Hurlbert from North Dakota. So another kind of a little bit slight but tall, kind of similar frame. I'm guessing from the pictures and videos I've seen to Lawson Lovering. So you bring in some good height. The question is, can they get physical? Can they bulk up before the season? Hopefully they're able to do that. But that's about all I got for the Buffaloes there. So let's move on to the Colorado State Rams. The Rams finished the season 25-6. The Rams were just incapable in their first round matchup with Michigan of defending Hunter Dickinson, the big 7-foot center under the hoop. They got out-rebounded by 11 points. There's no question that they got the raw end of several calls. I totally agree with that. But just 21 points on 36% shooting from David Roddy and Isaiah Stevens, that's not going to cut it. That's just flat not going to cut it. Now, with that being said, congratulations to Nico Medved and the Rams, because this was arguably, potentially, it could be debated, the best season in program history. As far as wins and record is concerned, obviously they didn't make it a run in the tournament, but they had really a great season this year. Looking forward for the Rams, David Roddy, Isaiah Stevens, and Deshaun Thomas are all juniors. So you hope that you're able to get them to come back. That would be a phenomenal coup to get all three of those guys back. This would be one of the oldest, most mature and experienced teams in the country, unquestionably, next year. Kendall Moore and Chandler Jacobs are likely gone. However, James Moore's, if he continues to kind of get tougher as the 6'10" backstop for this team on defense and really crashing the boards on offense, I think these Rams will be a tournament contender again next year. As far as recruiting, the Rams are yet to sign any players for the current recruiting class. Yikes. I wonder what the problem is there. Obviously, they can either go fishing or go recruiting now because the season is over. Now let's put a little book in here on the Wyoming Cowboys season. They finished the season 25-9. Really kind of slouched into the tournament. They had probably one of their best seasons in program history going until about a month ago. And then they had a stretch where they lost 3 out of 4, kind of closing down the regular season. They only made it one win in the Mountain West tournament, and then you bow out in the first 4 game. Wyoming was, according to the NCAA committee, the very last team selected to join the tournament. The Cowboys were just completely flat against Indiana, and the Hoosiers had a perfect defensive strategy. Graham Ike got into foul trouble early. That changed the total complexion of the game. Hunter Maldonado was a complete disaster. I hate to say it, he's a great player, but he has had a few games like this, and he just had one at the worst possible time. 10 turnovers and 3 missed free throws down the stretch. I mean, that's just a dagger. Hopefully that will inspire him to come back and play again next year on his COVID season, but we will see. Congratulations as well to Jeff Linder and the Cowboys, though. This is unquestionably their best season since 2001. Probably a top 5 season in their program's history, even with that late season slouch. Now, Graham Ike and Jeremiah Oden were both sophomores this year, so they should be back next year. The aforementioned Hunter Maldonado and Drake Jeffries were both seniors. They can both come back for their COVID year. However, Maldonado has begun the NBA draft process, according to sources. Now, that doesn't mean he has to go. Obviously, with NIL and some of the restructured rules, he can dip his toe in the water of the NBA. I think it's unlikely that he gets much attention. I think he'll come back and play for the Cowboys again next season. But if those two do leave, that being Maldonado and Jeffries, then this backcourt is going to be much less experienced. But Xavier Dussel and Brendan Wetzel are your likely 2 candidates to take over in the backcourt. Wetzel has kind of similar measurables to Maldo at 6'7", so he might be able to kind of fit into that post-up guard role that Jeff Linder clearly loves. As far as recruiting, Wyoming has signed a 3-star, 6'10" center, Caden Powell, from Waco, Texas. So that's a pretty good get for Wyoming there. And that kind of wraps up the local teams and their seasons. I will say the final remaining Colorado college basketball team is the University of Northern Colorado Bears. They are playing right now as I'm speaking to you against UNC Wilmington in the College Basketball Invitational. So the structure basically goes NCAA tournament, then the NIT tournament, National Invitational Tournament, and then there is a college basketball invitational. So it's kind of a third-tier postseason bracket. They've gotten a few surprising wins, and I believe if they beat UNC Wilmington here, they move into the final 8 teams of that tournament. So really, they're kind of a fun bunch to watch. You might look in the newspaper or check online to see if they're going to have any nationally televised games that you might watch. They have Dalen Kuntz, who transferred from Colorado over to UNC. He clearly is the straw that stirs the drink, and this team shoots a ton of three-pointers. So on any given night, if they're shooting well, they can beat probably any of those teams in that tournament. But if they don't, they're a little bit undersized. They don't get a ton of rebounds. They can get the doors blown off of them if they're not hitting their shots. So something to look out for. Might be enjoyable. Hopefully they get the win tonight over UNC Wilmington, and then we might have a chance to watch them play again in a couple of days. But now what I want to do is shift gears. We have our Sweet 16 set, and I'm going to go ahead and run through my take on the reseeding of these Sweet 16 teams. So every team will be seeded a 1, a 2, a 3, or a 4. I will break them down in order. And our number 1 overall seed, the team I've been most impressed with, the Kansas Jayhawks. They took out 16 seed Texas Southern in the first round and beat Creighton in a game that was actually a little bit closer than expected in the second round. The Jayhawks, in their last 4 games, they have beaten Texas Tech, TCU, who just took Arizona to overtime, and Creighton. They have many ways to win. It's really been impressive when Ochai Agbaji has, very infrequently, but he does on occasion have a game where he disappears a little bit on offense. He always plays hard on defense, but when he disappears on offense, they've found other ways to bring production and to win. Jalen Wilson, David McCormack, Christian Brown. These guys it's a really, really sound, solid, talented team. They're the number 1 seed, I think, remaining. The next number 1 seed, Gonzaga Bulldogs, took out 16 seed Georgia State in the first round, and then just beat Memphis in a fantastic game, 82-78. Memphis battled, man. They played like they belonged. They gave Gonzaga everything they could handle, and I think we found some weaknesses maybe in Gonzaga's game through this game, but ultimately Gonzaga moves on to the Sweet 16. Mark Few's bunch, they're just a machine. They just keep winning, and so it's gonna take a team like Memphis, a team that just has flat out talent all over the court, to really take out Gonzaga. Ultimately, like I said about Memphis, they probably should have been like a 6 seed. That was a good win for Gonzaga. Gonzaga next plays Arkansas. Now, before I move on, Kansas, their next opponent are the Providence Friars. Our third number 1 seed, and I've moved them up from where they were, which was a 2 seed, the Villanova Wildcats. They took out number 15 seed Delaware State by 20 in the first round, and then they played really a very solid, sound game, taking out the 7 seed Ohio State in the second round. Jay Wright brings his Wildcats back to the Sweet 16 now for the 5th time since 2013. You want to talk about consistency. Gonzaga and Villanova embody that. Check out this stat, though. Villanova is now 18-3 in their last 6 NCAA tournaments. That's right, they've only lost 3 times. Because they won 2 national titles. This tournament hasn't finished yet. So, Villanova is looking sound. I would say this is probably not Jay Wright's most talented team, but certainly the most disciplined, I believe, and most disciplined team in the tournament remaining, for sure. Colin Gillespie is proving me wrong, so it's the season to prove Tyson wrong, and he is stepping up to do that right now. As my final 1 seed remaining in the field, I've moved this team up from a 5. I think they were way underseeded, and that's Kelvin Sampson's Houston Cougars. They took out number 12 UAB 82-68 in the first round. UAB, what a terrible draw for UAB. This is a 12 seed that could have beaten any of the other 5s or even 4s maybe. But they had to be matched up with this Houston Cougars squad. Then in the second round, Houston takes out the 4 seed Illinois by 15 points. A really, really impressive performance. They held all that tremendous guard play from Illinois and big man Kofi Coburn, held them to just 53 points in the game. Man, these kids love playing for Kelvin Sampson. It's really fun to watch. He has established really an incredible culture there for the Cougars. And these Houston Cougars get the Arizona Wildcats next. I missed for Villanova. Their next opponent is going to be the Michigan Wolverines. Our number 1 2 seed, the UCLA Bruins, just taking care of business. Took out the 13 seed Akron, who was kind of an upset darling for a lot of people, 57-53. Just solid, stellar defense always. Mick Cronin, it's a calling card of his. And then in the second round, St. Mary's, who I saw several brackets of quote-unquote experts who were taking St. Mary's all the way to the Final Four. They're a 5 seed. They did beat Gonzaga this year, but UCLA beats them 72-56. Just a real dominant performance. They brought the band back together from that Final Four run last year, and they are looking like they are in peak postseason shape right now. Tiger Campbell's really kind of been driving the boat for them right now. So it's going to be kind of interesting to see when Johnny Juzang, Jules Bernard, some of these other guys, Jaime Jaquez, are going to step up. They're all capable of doing it. UCLA gets the North Carolina Tar Heels in the next round. My second number 2 seed is the Duke Blue Devils. Took out the 15 seed Cal State Fullerton in the first round, and then the 7 seed Michigan State in a kind of a really fun, interesting battle. It was a lot of it was quite entertaining to watch Tom Izzo and Coach Mike Krzyzewski, two very seasoned national champion coaches, really strategizing against each other. A lot of different substitutions, a lot of different defensive schemes. Michigan State gave them all they could handle, but Duke looked pretty salty and experienced closing out the game. Again, this is Mike Krzyzewski's final farewell swan song season, and they keep it alive. One thing to keep in mind, Mark Williams, the big man for Duke, he has the best field goal percentage in the tournament, 70%. He makes 7 out of 10 shots. That means a couple of things. He's shooting well, but also it means they're getting him the ball 2 feet away from the basket a lot. So that's good old-fashioned Blue Devil style basketball. Duke's next opponent is Texas Tech. My second number 2 seed, I slid them down from a 1 seed, and that's the Arizona Wildcats. They took out the 16 seed Wright State in the first round, and then an incredible overtime thriller game, probably the second best game of the weekend, only because nothing beats that North Carolina Baylor game, but this was an incredible game to cap off the weekend. They beat the 9 seed TCU. Jamie Dixon is an incredible coach. As coach at TCU, they have some young talent. Hopefully they can bring the core back. I think he is really, really building something there. And TCU, look out for next year. I bet they're going to be a top 4 team in the Big 12. No question about it next year. So Arizona State, Tommy Lloyd, in his first season as a head coach, and they're back in the Sweet 16. This is the first time Arizona was in the Sweet 16 since 2017. We already know they have the number 2 scoring offense in the country. However, I mean, you just looked at that game against TCU. The defense is very suspect. They're not very good on the high ball screen. They're not very good at defending the 3. They have to score 85, 90 points in order to win these games. And so if you catch a game where Christian Coloco gets in foul trouble, or somebody gets injured, God forbid, or Benedict Matherin's not shooting well, and you get beat. So I had to drop Arizona down from the 1 line to the 2 line for that. Arizona plays Houston next. As my fourth 2 seed, I have the Texas Tech Red Raiders. They took out number 14 Montana State, 97-62 in the first round. And then they took out a really scrappy, fun bunch in the Notre Dame Irish that came out of their 11 seed. They came out of a play-in game, beat Rutgers, and then got past the next round, and then lost here in the official second round, their third game, to the Texas Tech Red Raiders, 59-53. This one was scrappy. This one was tough. Couple of bad officiating calls for sure. There was this one dunk, Kevin O'Banner, I believe it was Kevin O'Banner, where he jumps up to dunk it, grabs the rim with his bare hand, and then dunks the basketball. I mean, on the replay, pretty clearly an offensive goaltending, but they didn't call that. There was also kind of a fast break Notre Dame had, and the refs blew a whistle because of some clock issue. Couple of bad breaks for Notre Dame, but they couldn't shoot. You only scored 53 points. Like, you got to make buckets if you want to complain about not getting opportunities, and that's what Texas Tech's defense does. The best way of describing them I saw online, and I think this was John Rothstein, I give credit to, at CBS, but kind of like in the theme of a lawyer in court or whatever, with Texas Tech, the defense never rests. So that's the case. Mark Adams, also in his first year as head coach, They are holding opponents to just 57 points per game, and they have forced 27 turnovers through 2 games. The defense is unbelievable. This team is very similar, I think, to Houston. Houston has more of a size presence with Josh Carlton and Fabian White, but they played incredible, phenomenal defense, both of these teams. I like defense a lot, so it's been a joy for me to watch that. Next, as our top 3 seed, this team has skyrocketed up from an 8 seed, and that is the North Carolina Tar Heels. Holy smokes. Now, we here at Right on Cue picked Shaka Smart and Marquette to beat North Carolina in the first round, and the Tar Heels came out. Hubert Davis had his bunch going. They won by, 32 points over Marquette. Didn't get that one. Then they roll into the second round against Baylor, the 1 seed, the reigning national champion, and right out of the gate, they just blew the doors off of Baylor. I got to tell you, I remember watching Brady Manek play at Oklahoma. He never played this well. I mean, he played phenomenally against Baylor. They built up this lead, 25 points, with about 8 minutes left in the game. Brady Manek, there was some debate whether this was a good call or not. He clearly looks back, spots Jeremy Sohan's face, the Baylor defender, turns back around, and then as he's boxing out, throws his elbow right at his face, makes contact. It's flagrant 2. You're out for the game. It's unfortunate, but you can't do that. That's just a bad decision being made there. Luckily for him, North Carolina advanced, but they were up 25 points at that point. 8 minutes left. Baylor goes on a phenomenal, incredible run back to tie it right with about 12 seconds left in regulation. North Carolina looked like they had lost all momentum. They needed to hit a shot at the end of the game to win it, because if it went to overtime, they were done. They were turning the ball over. They were undisciplined. They were clearly getting frustrated, making ticky-tack fouls. RJ Davis misses the three-pointer. They couldn't even really get a good look. It was almost like a half-court three-pointer because this Baylor defense was just stifling them. Goes to overtime, and I think everyone watching the game was thinking North Carolina is done. And, man, credit to Hubert Davis, credit to this squad. They came out in overtime. They took it right to Baylor. I think a little bit you could say maybe Baylor wore themselves out, making that long run back to tie it up. But North Carolina put it away in overtime. And they get to face UCLA next. That is a phenomenal matchup. I can't wait to watch. Hubert Davis, also a first-year head coach, and this offense is just hot. Flat, hot, fire. 94 points per game in the tournament so far. My next number 3 seed, the Miami Hurricanes. That's right, you heard that correctly. They were seeded as a 10 seed. I have moved them up to a 3 seed. They came out, first of all, and beat a really tough 7 seed USC by 2 points in the first round. USC could have won that one easily. Miami had a little bit of an off shooting night, but they found a way to get the win. But the second round, I believe this was on Sunday, they go up against the 2 seed Auburn. Auburn with a Final Four caliber head coach with Jabari Smith, who's going to be the number 1 NBA draft pick, with incredible guard play. And you've got Walker Kessler, who's leading the nation in block shots, and Miami goes and just destroys them. 79-61, an incredible performance. Keep in mind, Jim Larrañaga, the head coach at Miami, that was your head coach at George Mason when they made their run to the Final Four. This is not foreign territory for him. He has his best team in Coral Gables since probably 2015, and they're playing fun and inspired basketball. Miami Hurricanes get Iowa State next. That's an interesting matchup. The second to last 3 seed, the Purdue Boilermakers. I think they're a phenomenal team. They've looked pretty consistent. The problem is they haven't really played anybody all that tough. So I can't elevate them above the seed they're already at, which is a 3. Purdue took out 14 seed Yale in the first round by 22. And then this last game against the 6 seed Texas, they won by 10. About that game, I really got to say, and I have some friends who are dyed-in-the-wool Purdue fans, and that's fine. But it is truly despicable how their last game played out against Texas. I mean, Now, I believe Purdue would have won anyways because they had their three-headed monster of Williams, Edey, and Jaden Ivey really going. But they shot, check this out, they shot 46 free throws in the game. They shot 34 more free throws than did Texas. And they only won by 10 points. Timmy Allen, probably the best offensive weapon for Texas, fouled out with probably 5 minutes left in the game. I can't believe this game was refereed this way. So uninteresting, so unimpressive. Free throw shooting contest for the last 5 minutes of the game for Purdue. Really disappointing. But Purdue advances, but they haven't proven anything to me yet. So I leave them at a 3. They take on St. Peter's, the 15 seed in the next round. This is probably the easiest walk to the Elite Eight that any team has had in many, many years. So hopefully Matt Painter and Purdue doesn't screw it up. I can tell you, I like Matt Painter, I like Purdue, but you got to be rooting for the St. Mary's Peacocks, don't you? My final 3 seed is the Providence Friars. They move up from the 4 line. They took out 13 seed South Dakota State in the first round just by 9 points. Not super impressive, but South Dakota State was like 3rd in the country in scoring offense. They were one of those great mid-majors that, Providence did not overlook. They got the win. Second round, Providence beat the 12 seed Richmond. This one, a much more impressive win. They ended up winning by 17 points. I think for Richmond, they just flat out ran out of gas. They weren't going to make the NCAA tournament. They went on that run, 4 wins in 4 days to win the Atlantic 10 tournament. Then they come and win their first round matchup against Iowa. I think they just finally got tired and wore out. Back to Providence. They are 1 win away from tying the most wins in program history. Pretty cool for them. And the coach, Ed Cooley, I think has done a phenomenal job here. He seems like a fun guy. I like his attitude. The players seem to really like him. So in assessing them, you have two blowout wins, one over a 13 seed, one over a 12 seed. I think they only slide up 1 spot from the 4 line to the 3 line. We'll see what they're made of when they take on the Kansas Jayhawks in their next game. My next top 4 seed, the Arkansas Razorbacks, took out the 13 seed Vermont, 75-71 in the first round, and then took out the 12 seed New Mexico State, 53-48 in the second round. They played 2 double-digit seeds, so from the outside it might look like not too tough of a road, but Vermont and New Mexico State were both very tremendously talented mid-major teams. Obviously, they were close games, 4 points in the first game, 5 points difference in the second game, but Arkansas found a way to win. They play outstanding defense. They forced New Mexico State into 19 turnovers. The real question is, outside of J.D. Notae, it's like what I said coming into the tournament, what is their next weapon? Who is going to pick up scoring for them? They scored just 53 points against New Mexico State. That ain't going to cut it as you take on the Gonzaga Bulldogs in the next round. Then at the 4 seed, I have the Michigan Wolverines. Now, they took out Colorado State, the 6 seed in the first round. A game that was maybe a little bit closer than the score indicated, but an impressive win for Michigan anyway. And then I've got to tell you, wow. This was one of the more impressive wins of the weekend when Michigan took out the 3 seed Tennessee, fresh off of winning the SEC championship. They looked like they were playing great. Rick Barnes had a real collection of talent here, and Michigan just took it right to them. They controlled the game from jump. These guys are really inspired and circling around Juwan Howard. I was kind of interested to see how they would react to him coming back after his suspension for punching, slapping, however you want to say it, an assistant coach from Wisconsin. He had the 5-game suspension, came back to coach them in the Big Ten tournament. They lost their first game, so that was kind of an indication maybe they weren't copacetic there, but man, they've come out here in the NCAA tournament and marched right into the Sweet 16. They get Villanova next. Then I have, as my second to last 4 seed, the Iowa State Cyclones. They took out the 6 seed LSU 59-54 in the first round. Really, their offense was very, very sparse. the kid Tyrese Hunter was the only real offensive weapon for Iowa State, and he came on really late. He's a freshman. He kind of faded and didn't do much in their second round game. And also LSU, keep in mind, had just fired their head coach Will Wade and 2 assistants. That one was kind of a fortuitous break for Iowa State. And then in the second round, they took out the 3-seed Wisconsin. This was a team I told you early on, before the tournament, I was fading Wisconsin hard. It just didn't look right to me. Wisconsin only put up 49 points as Iowa State got the win by 5. TJ Otzelberger's squad, the Cyclones here, they've held now a 3-seed and a 6-seed to just 52 points per game. They, too, are playing elite defense. The problem is, if they face an efficient offensive team, that can shoot over their defense, then they don't have the offensive capacity to keep up. They take on Miami next. That's going to be a fun matchup. Those are 2 exciting teams that were both super underseeded, a 10 and an 11 seed meeting up in the Sweet 16. That's going to be a fun one. And then obviously the final seed, the 16th seed, the St. Peter's Peacocks. Yeah, you heard me correctly. The St. Peter's Peacocks are in the Sweet 16 2022. First round, they took out number 2 seed Kentucky, 85-79. Kentucky was lucky to put it into overtime. St. Peter's owned the control and the tempo of that game from start to finish. Oscar Tshiebwe was the only one who did anything for Kentucky. The guard play was terrible, and my national championship pick bowed out first round. Got to tip my hat to St. Peter's. Second round, they kind of got a good break because I think Murray State was overseeded a little bit. They beat Murray State by 10 points. I don't think that's all that impressive of a win. They're going to be taking on Purdue next. Purdue will be heavy favorites in that game. But right now I want to just take a second and let's meet the St. Peter's Peacocks. Their head coach, Shaheen Holloway, is in his 4th season at St. Peter's. Something interesting about their first round upset over Kentucky. Kentucky has 4 assistant coaches that get paid more than Shaheen Holloway, the head coach of St. Peter's, $266,344 a year. St. Peter's is a Catholic school located in Jersey City, New Jersey, founded in 1872. They started playing varsity basketball in 1937 at the Jersey City Armory. Since 1975, they have played at the gym affectionately known as the Run Baby Run Arena. Enrollment at St. Peter's, 2,355 students. As a reference, their next opponent, Purdue, has an enrollment of 41,573 students. Yep, that's 18 and a half times as many students over there in West Lafayette as there are in Jersey City. But this is what's fun about March Madness. You get to meet teams like this, and these kids, I saw something today, of all of the players on St. Peter's squad, not a single one of them had a rating, just a rating period, nationally as a basketball player. So they were all completely under the radar, and they're playing well as a team. Don't forget to stop by Ellis Island Immigration Station when you visit St. Peter's University. So that was our public service announcement there for St. Peter's. Let me go ahead just real quick and touch on this. I know we are going a little bit long here. This is my first team all-tournament so far. At guard, Jaden Ivey from Purdue. He's going for 20 points and 3.5 rebounds, 2 assists per game. Guard, Kyler Edwards from Houston, 20 points, 6.5 rebounds per game. The dude I was talking about earlier, forward, Brady Manick from North Carolina, 27 points per game and 8 rebounds. He is a real front runner for the tournament player of the tournament. Then we've got the forward Drew Timme going for 28.5 points, 13.5 rebounds. He's also a front runner for that player of the tournament. Christian Coloco, 22.5 points, 12.5 rebounds, and 4 assists per game. Some other players you're going to want to keep your eye out for: J.D. Note at Arkansas, Kevin O'Banner at Texas Tech, Noah Horchler, who was averaged like 9 points a game during the season. He's been coming on, getting a double-double per game in the NCAA tournament. Obviously, Armando Bacot from North Carolina, and Big Hunter Dickinson from Michigan. So, here we go. Reset. Let's see if we can do better this time around with just 16 teams. On Thursday, the 4 seed Arkansas takes on the 1 seed Gonzaga. This game is going to be in San Francisco. Gonzaga is favored by 8.5 points. The Gonzaga Bulldogs have now made it to 7 straight Sweet 16s. Like I said, model of consistency. That is the longest active streak in the country. Chet Holmgren already has 7 blocks through 2 games. Andrew Nembhard has almost 6 assists per game. Drew Timme, 28.5 points per game. Timme and Holmgren are both averaging a double-double in the tournament. The real concern for Gonzaga, though, they got out-rebounded for the 3rd time this year in their last win over Memphis. They're showing some real soft weakness on the rebounding on the boards. They have, Chet Holmgren. I thought this would be exposed when I made my predictions last week. Chet Holmgren is 7'1", 7'2". He's got like a 7'6" wingspan, but he is a string bean. He has no meat on him, and so when you get a guy in there who's big, who can body him up, it's going to bang on him, and he's not going to be in position to get the rebounds. Arkansas, on the other hand, is in their 2nd consecutive Sweet 16. They have, though, yet to play a single-digit seed, though, in the tournament. Eric Musselman, I think, is proving that he's a consistent, good coach. He might be kind of a young name that moves on to carry the mantle now with guys like Roy Williams and Mike Krzyzewski, maybe Jim Boeheim, like Tom Izzo. When they start moving on, he may be one of these coaches that comes to take the mantle. J.D. Notte, the point guard, is averaging 3 steals per game. Here's the real concern for Arkansas. It's just a bad matchup for them. They have a lack of size. Jalen Williams is their tallest player, and he goes 6'10", but he's soft and skinny, just like Chet Holmgren. So if you're going to be soft and skinny, you'd rather be 7'1", soft and skinny, than 6'10", soft and skinny. New Mexico State out-rebounded Arkansas by 7. Give me Gonzaga and the under on the 8.5 line. Our next matchup, and this is out of the South region, going to be played in San Antonio. The 11 seed Michigan taking on the 2 seed Villanova. Nova is favored by 5 here. I think it is safe to say that Michigan has been the best team in the Big Ten the last couple of years. 2 wins over single-digit seeds in the tournament, and they're into the Sweet 16 for the 2nd year in a row. Hunter Dickinson is a real matchup nightmare. He went for 24-9 in their last game. Moussa Diabate is showing that he's a real scrapper on the glass. Eli Brooks has been pretty steady in this tournament. He's about even assist-to-turnover ratio, but he's been putting up points on the board, and that's been a real help for this Michigan squad. On the Villanova side, Ed Dixon is a real bruiser underneath. I was super impressed with the way he played in their last game. The real question, though, is do they have the bodies to rotate on Hunter Dickinson? He's going to get someone in foul trouble. So you have 3 guys that you can rotate in on him to disperse the fouls. Jay Wright is crafty. They have several sort of defensive sets where I think they'll show one thing and then they switch to another. Like I mentioned, Colin Gillespie is hot at exactly the right time. He went for 17 and 8 assists to just 2 turnovers in their last game. Caleb Houston has been really shrinking in the moment. That's the stud sophomore for Michigan. He must shoot better for the Wolverines to have a chance here. I think Villanova is looking elite. They're looking like they're on a mission to win. A kind of an under-the-radar story. Villanova could win their 3rd national title in 6 tournaments, I believe. What an incredible stretch for them. I got Villanova in this one, and they cover the 5. The magic ends for the Michigan Wolverines. Next, we have the 3 seed Texas Tech taking on the 2 seed Duke. Texas Tech is actually a 1-point favorite in this one, being played in San Francisco out of the West region. The Red Raiders' defense is historically efficient, but they have not played their best basketball in the tournament so far. But I see them kind of settling in and establishing that. Kevin O'Banner is collecting 13 rebounds per game. 5 of those are offensive rebounds. That's really been kind of a key to extend their possessions on the offensive end. However, like I mentioned, Duke has Mark Williams. The 7-foot center not only brings the 8 rebounds per game, but he has 5 blocks in each of the last 2 games in this tournament. He is a force to be reckoned with under the hoop. He's one of those players I'm talking about that would really give Chet Holmgren some trouble from Gonzaga. Paolo Banchero is pouring in 18 points per game, and Duke is shooting 55% from the field in the tournament. That is a high clip. Tech shot 67% in their first game, but just 35% in their second game against Notre Dame. Notre Dame was really able to confuse them, and Notre Dame doesn't have near the size that Duke does. This Texas Tech squad's offense can really disappear at times. I think Duke needs to get out and push the pace. When that happens, in order to get points up on the board, Duke does have a short bench, though. They only do about a 7-guy rotation, so foul trouble can really create some problems for Duke if Texas Tech can drag them into the mud, muck it up, get them fouling, get them making stupid plays. I think that really gives them the best chance in this one. But give me Duke plus the 1 point in this spot as Coach K gets his 100th tournament win. For reference on that, okay? Because I think a lot of times people think, yeah, Coach K is great, but so is Jay Wright, so is Tom Izzo, so is Bill Self. No. Coach K, and I've never been a Duke fan, but Coach K is so much more elite than he gets kind of explained. He could get his 100th tournament win. To put that in perspective, Bill Self is also a Hall of Fame coach. He just got his 50th NCAA tournament win. So, super impressive. Got to tip your hat to greatness, and that is Coach K. The next game, the 5 seed Houston Cougars taking on the 1 seed Arizona Wildcats. Now, Arizona's just a 2-point favorite in this one out of the South region. This game as well is played in San Antonio. Kind of an unfortunate shake, don't you think, for Arizona? They're the 1 seed taking on a 5 seed, and the 5 seed is... The game is pretty much right in their backyard, right? How far away is Houston from San Antonio? I wouldn't imagine all that far. Houston is home to the number 1 scoring defense in the country. They are the only team in the country that is home to a top 10 offensive and defensive efficiency rank in the country. Very, very impressive. In this last game, they really showed a display of their size under the hoop. Carlton, Fabian White, and now Reggie Chaney comes in and really mixes things up under the hoop. They have real size down low. Jamal Shed is going for 6 assists per game. The defense held Illinois, like I said, to just 34% from the field and forced 17 turnovers. They had Illinois in a straitjacket throughout that game. The concern, though, for Houston, short bench. They've dealt with a ton of injuries this year. Short bench, limited rotation, especially in the backcourt with the guards. So you need to not have your guards be picking up ticky-tack fouls, especially on the defensive end. For Arizona, though, Kerr Carissa is back. But he was a complete non-factor against TCU. He's clearly limited. This is the point guard for Arizona. He was really a great player all season. Got injured in the Pac-12 tournament. Missed the first-round game. Back for this one. And like I said, was basically a non-factor. Christian Coloco, though, welcome to the stage, big man. 28 points, 12 rebounds, way above his numbers on an average throughout the season. Also, Benedict Mathurin pours in 30 points. They just ran wild on the offensive side. But on the defensive end, it was really poor. This is not an elite Texas Christian offense, and they really scored pretty much at will. This is a major clash of styles between Houston and Arizona. Arizona needs a fast-paced game where they can get out and get layups. They also need to shoot efficiently from three-point range. Otherwise, they're going to get pulled into that straitjacket of that Houston defense just the same. I got to say, give me Houston plus the 2 in this one. And hey, this Houston squad, they are a real national champion contender. I got to tell you, a real national champion contender. Must stay out of foul trouble, though. Then on Friday, the aforementioned St. Peter's Peacocks, the 15 seed, takes on the 3 seed Purdue out of the East region. Game being played in Philadelphia. Purdue favored by 12.5 points in this one. Now, I got to say, for St. Peter's, this is truly a remarkable story. Like I mentioned, the Peacocks only have 2 players who averaged double-digit scoring this season. Only 2. And they just barely did. Daryl Banks, the kid out of high school in L.A., 11.4 points. And Casey Nadefo, who was a real factor in their last game, just 10.7 points. St. Peter's is 11th in the country in defensive efficiency. If you remember from the episode last week, I broke down for you your Final Four teams, your national champion is almost certainly going to come from this group, the top 40 in adjusted defensive efficiency. Well, St. Mary's is there. I don't think that means they're a real contender for the national championship, but something to keep in mind. The Drame brothers and Nadefo just purely have no quit in them whatsoever. They are all over the court. They fight for rebounds. The 6'2 guard, Doug Eddert, is shooting 69% in the tournament. That is lights out. He's got a little swagger to him and a really disgusting mustache that makes him kind of a fun guy to root for. He strikes me a little bit kind of like a Baker Mayfield, where you can root for him for a while and then it'll get old pretty quick. But for the St. Peter squad, they haven't faced the height that they're going to face in this Purdue bunch. They did battle Oscar Tshiebwe in the first round, who is kind of similarly sized to Travion Williams, but Zach Edey is 7'4". We've seen how Purdue has advanced, and I think it will continue that way. They're going to feed the low post. They're going to get fouls. They have been shooting their free throws at a very high clip through this tournament. I think Purdue will get the win, but maybe under the 12.5 points. That might be the line you go for there. Then we have the 4-seed Providence taking on the 1-seed Kansas out of the Midwest region, game being played in Chicago. Kansas is a 7.5-point favorite. As I mentioned, Providence has played 2 phenomenal games, but they were both against a 12-seed and a 13-seed. It's kind of hard to determine value when the team isn't playing better competition. But they have beaten 2 of the other 16 teams that made the Sweet 16 this year. Back in November, they beat that St. Peter squad, and they beat Texas Tech in back-to-back games. In the tournament, Noah Horchler, like I mentioned, has shot 50%, and he canned 6 3-pointers in their last game. He also collected 14 rebounds in their win over Richmond. Minaya and Watson provide some real force in the paint as well. They've played great defense, holding opponents to just 54 points per game. But in that last game, Richmond hit only 1 3-pointer against the Friars. That's nobody you face is going to do that. That was just a completely off game for Richmond. Kansas averages 9 3-point buckets per game on 48% shooting. That is a very high clip. They work for really good shots from outside the arc. Jayhawks coach Bill Self is now in his 14th Sweet 16 appearance. I think the Jayhawks get the win big here. Take Kansas minus the points. In our next matchup, out of the East region, we have the 9-seed North Carolina Tar Heels and the 4-seed UCLA Bruins. UCLA is a 2-point favorite in this one, game being played in Philadelphia. The Heels' offense is just flat on fire. They did taper off quite a bit at the very, very end of that game against Baylor, but they still pulled the win as they kind of resurrected their offense in overtime. Like I said, Brady Manick has just been flat unconscious. He was averaging just 15 points per game on the season. He's averaging 27 points per game in the tournament. R.J. Davis put up 17 points above his season average in their second game against Baylor. And Armando Bacot is going for 16 points and 13 rebounds per game in the tournament. With all that being said, though, very concerning how the defense completely disappeared and fell apart in the last 8 minutes of that game against Baylor. For Carolina, the highs are way high, but the lows can get way, way low. On the UCLA side, Mick Cronin's Bruins are far more consistent. They have defined roles and a deep rotation. 3 players off the bench scoring 6 points or more per game. Tiger Campbell, like I said, has been leading the way as the defense... as their opponents' defenses have really tried to strategize to take away Johnny Juzang and Jaime Jaquez. Campbell has been going for 16 points per game, 5 assists per game in the tournament. The Bruins have been a top 10 defensive efficiency team all year. This is also a massive clash of styles, just like the Houston-Arizona game. Give me the Bruins -2 as the Heels just finally cool off in their shooting, and those clanks off the rim, those long rebounds, are going to turn into fast breaks for UCLA. They get the win. And our final game on Friday, Iowa State, the 11 seed, taking on Miami, the 10 seed. This is out of the Midwest region, game being played in Chicago. Miami favored by 2.5 points. They may have the two most impressive wins of the tournament so far in combination, the win over USC and Auburn. Larrañaga's four-guard squad is actually very old school in style. They get to the rim at will and take and make a lot of mid-range two-point jumpers, which analytics says is just a complete waste of time. They're really throwing it back old school. McGusty and Wong combined to shoot 50% from the field. They're getting really good looks at the bucket, and they rebound from all over the court. They have 7 players who got double-digit rebounds in their last game. 4 players had 4 rebounds or more. This is a very heady, mature team, starting 3 seniors and a junior. That's going to be a trend for this game, though, because Iowa State also starts 3 seniors and a junior. This is also a very aware, heady bunch. They recognize that they don't have the most talent on the court in most of the games that they play, and so they really muddy it up. They bog it down into a low-scoring battle. They're not afraid to draw a charge, contest shots, even if they get called for a foul. In their win over the 3-seed Wisconsin, the Badgers only made, check this out, oh my gosh, the Badgers only made 14 shots the whole game. That's it. They made 14 shots the whole game. That is it. In their first round win over LSU, the freshman Tyrese Hunter was sensational. 23 points, 3 assists, and 5 steals. Most of that, like I mentioned, coming down the stretch. But he had an off game against Wisconsin. And the Cyclones offense really struggled. These are 2 of the best stories of the year, I really think, in the tournament. Remember, Iowa State just won 2 games last year, and now they're in the Sweet 16. But Miami shoots too well, and they're not going to get frazzled by the Cyclones defense. I got to go with the Miami Hurricanes, and give me the -2.5 as well. All right, I just want to hit on this real quick before we go. The Big Ten. You know I was talking about how there's no way they had 9 teams that should have gotten into the tournament. Well, here we go. The Big Ten sent the second most teams all time in NCAA tournament, 9 teams, to this year's tournament. 4 teams lost before we even got to Saturday. By the end of the weekend, the Big Ten had just 2 teams remaining. The Big Ten was favored in 4 of those 7 losses. Okay, so you can only use the excuse of, well, they were the lower seed for 3 of those 7 losses. The other 4 were upset. They were a 3-seed Wisconsin, a 4-seed Iowa, a 4-seed Illinois, a 5-seed Iowa. I mean, really unimpressive. The Big Ten 3 and 5 versus single-digit seeds. 2 of those wins are Michigan. So without Michigan, really Michigan's the only team that's proven they belong in this tournament of all 9 of them. Without Michigan, you have only 1 win out of the Big Ten. From 8 would be 8 teams then there. In the last 2 years, the Big Ten has gotten a total of 18 teams into the tournament field. Exactly 3 of them, 3 out of 18, made it out of the first weekend of play. 2 of those, again, was Michigan. If not for Michigan, this conference would be 1 out of 16 attempts. Yet we continue to believe this conference is, 3 teams better than any other conference in the country. I just want to revisit this real quick while I'm bagging on the Big Ten. Again, Wisconsin only made 14 baskets in their second round game against Iowa State. Only 14! Okay? That's awful. That's half of what most teams make in a basketball game. And then, obviously, I mentioned with Purdue and the fouls. And through their first 2 games, Purdue has shot 79 free throws. 79. Unbelievable. Correctly. I do think they have talent to beat those teams, but we weren't given the opportunity to even watch. It was a free throw contest through 2 games, basically. It's the only way they're really getting by is getting calls from the refs. It's not entertaining basketball. It's pretty clear at this point, in my opinion, that Texas A&M and Wake Forest should have been in the NCAA tournament over Indiana and Rutgers. I will fight to my dying breath to defend that. There's no way the Big Ten deserves 9 teams. Now, I will say Michigan actually ponied up, and they proved that they belonged in the tournament. So I will forego my dogging on the Michigan Wolverines moving forward. One bit of uncomfortable news, New Mexico State coach Chris Jans is going to be taking the Mississippi State job. In 5 seasons in Las Cruces, the Aggies won the WAC Conference regular season title 4 out of those 5 years. They made 3 NCAA tournament appearances. The one that they missed was the COVID year. Their last 2 appearances was as a 12 seed. This year they beat the 5 seed Connecticut in the first round in pretty impressive fashion. They have averaged 28 wins per year under Chris Jans. Just an incredible culture of consistency, of dominance that Chris Jans built there. For New Mexico State fans, focus on what you were able to get out of those years. It is a bummer he's leaving. James Miller, the associate head coach, is likely to fill the position, but there's a turnover, obviously, in the coaching, and then you have Teddy Allen, the WAC Player of the Year, leaving. I think there might be a little bit of a transitionary difficulty here, but we wish the New Mexico State Aggies luck with that. And with all of that being said, I just want to remind you one last time, like, subscribe. Please feel free to share this content with anybody you think might be interested. We are growing and growing and growing. Send me your emails to writeonqcs@gmail.com. I've been getting some feedback. I really appreciate it. I'll try and reach out and message you back whenever I do get some feedback. You have been watching Right on Cue College Sports. I'm Tyson Quiller, and we will get at you next time.